Hello and welcome to another exciting episode. Well, I can't really say another exciting episode since this is like the first time we're doing this officially. And of course my phone goes off. Well, intro ruined. So we're going to talk to you today about X-Men. But not just any X-Men. X-Men from 1997. Now, in case you're wondering, or you live under a rock, or you're not American and the shit wasn't licensed where you live, there was a world famous damn near X-Men cartoon show that happened on Saturday mornings for many, many people. Millions, one would say, because it's true. However, the ending was practically, for lack of a better term, not expected. I think that's a nice way to put it. So, it left some hearts broken, some souls crushed, and questions unanswered.
So many questions.
Yeah. Now you may think I'm speaking hyperbolically, but if you weren't around for that era, you don't know about this. Now, we knew right before, the world got cooties and lockdown shit that this had gone into production, right? But we didn't hear nothing. It basically went silent. However, fairly recently, we now have a trailer. And we're going to talk to you today about it because we love X-Men. And it's been a long time since we discussed this. In fact, the last time we discussed this was when the official announcement had initially happened. So there wasn't even really any background footage we could have used until now. As it stands at this point, the trailer is 4 days old and has over 7.3 million views on YouTube. So we know a lot of people gonna be watching this shit. Now, with that being said, I'm gonna just go ahead and tell you what the questions are. First and foremost, was there anything notable you want to speak on from the trailer? Second thing is, do you want them or do you prefer X-Men animated shows create original stories, relatively speaking, because an original story with a franchise as old as this ain't exactly the easiest thing in the world? Or do you prefer them make attempts at comic book adaptations? Lastly, who do you want to see crossover? Because, well, pretty much everybody, with the exception of, I believe, the Hulk and maybe Namor, or really just the Hulk, is on the table these days. Unlike before. Bad fact. That's right, I said bad fact, not fun fact. The X-Men and many other Marvel properties were allowed to cross over onto the fucking Spider-Man show. But guess who was not allowed to cross over onto the X-Men show, even though they were using the same characters and the same voice actors? Yeah, exactly. Spider-Man. I want to blame Sony, so I will. There was no reason to do that, Sony. You guys even had some of the same animation and production staff. Film Roman was all over 90s Fox last time I checked. People only know the name Film Roman from Saturday morning Fox cartoons. Today I'm joined by a longtime visitor. Surprised he hasn't bought a property in the area yet. A one Officer 9000 plus one. And myself.
I consider buying a property in the area, but I gotta maintain, being a citizen in my area to be a police officer here.
We might splice in some other guests later. However, that is highly unlikely, given the fact that through just random coincidence, I did not know this, most of the people in this group did not actually grow up watching the old X-Men cartoon.
Honestly, I'm surprised.
Yes, because, we're not old, but we ain't spring chickens, with the exception of like 3 people out of the 15 technically in this group. Nobody is under 23. So for a lot of people, this shit should have been readily available. But then again, at the same time, the Blu-rays and the DVDs fucking didn't even come out till 2012, 11.
Mm-hmm.
So rights have been an issue, but we all knew that. Let's not go into the Ike Perlmutter saga. We'd be here all day.
Had to rely on old recorded VHSs.
Huh. That's a word I haven't heard in a long time. So yeah, officer, I'm gonna let you answer all these questions. Due to how small this group is, take all the time you want. By the way, when I say that, that doesn't mean have long pauses after individual words and sentences. That means feel free to not have to worry about editing and expediting what you say. Still talk at a normal pace. I'm just gonna say that right now instead of typing it.
The first one you mentioned was things you noticed in the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of hard to not reference the very last couple seconds of the trailer when Magneto just, casually says, "Ah, yes, everything that Xavier had, it's now all mine." So, what the hell are they going to be doing with Magneto?
A part of me still wants to figure out if that's like original or from a storyline, but at the same time, I kind of don't want to spoil it for myself. But we all know it's not going to be a one-to-one of the comics. But I do really want to know if that's something that happened at one point.
Yeah, I can't say I can recall whether or not that happened in the comics or not. I'm sure a couple friends of mine who follow the comics like religiously would probably know it a lot better. I didn't really follow the comics that closely, so I don't really know. Now, the other thing that I noticed kind of in that trailer was, oh, hey, look, Jean Grey and Scott Summers, they're going to be having a kid.
I'm glad you mentioned
Unless,
it. I'm a little bit jealous, but also I was blown away by how many people didn't catch that Jean Grey was pregnant in the trailer.
Mm-hmm. For me, it was hard to miss.
Got a bun in that
As
oven.
I think back to some of the really stupid comic stories that happened with regard to the relationship between those two. Oh, God. But that's... best not get into the crazy shit happened there, but yeah, those were probably the big things I noticed. Was, she's pregnant. Okay, where's that gonna go? And Magneto taking over. What's gonna happen there? And it looked like, actually, one other thing I noticed in the trailer with regard to Magneto, there was like a couple second shot where they showed him in like some sort, it looked possibly like a Congress house in front of some sort of like tribunal or something.
Yeah, I think it might have been in reference to the final episode. Now, I know it's been a long time since we've seen it, but I actually happened to watch it about 2 years ago, so I have a bit of a stronger memory. I'm still kind of mad they introduced all those other fucking mutants literally in that last episode and they didn't even have like vocal lines and shit. Magneto got asked to basically take over mutant kind, and he was deliberating it. He couldn't make a decision, right? And he was in some area or place where it was like a temple or something, and that might be where that is.
Okay. That explains that. I believe the second question you asked was that was the one with regard to crossovers?
Yeah, pretty much everybody's on the table, so who would you like to see?
Honestly, with how many fucking times that, X-Men showed up in a Spider-Man cartoon, I want to see fucking Spider-Man. Though I also realize that's probably not going to happen because we don't have a Spider-Man animated series running, at the same time.
What the fuck? No, it could still happen. He just won't be from that show.
True. But then that also brings up the issue of continuity. Unless they decide to establish, oh yeah, so that other Spider-Man animated series didn't take place in the same continuity as this. Which,
I don't know if that would make me angry or not. I can't tell.
yeah, I would be okay with it if it means we can get Spider-Man. I want to see sarcastic quips between Spider-Man and the X-Men, specifically Wolverine.
I want to see him and Wolverine become drinking buddies or some shit. Because, Wolverine and Spider-Man, they like thick as thieves and shit.
Exactly. But other possible crossovers. While I'm kind of mixed opinion on this, I suppose Deadpool is inevitable and they might be able to do it well, just so long as they don't oversell the Deadpool leaning on the fourth wall thing. That's always been the thing about Deadpool I found. Come on, man. Stop overusing that shit.
Well, I'm not going to say it isn't his defining trait, but the way that show
It kinda is.
Yeah, but the way that show is specifically structured, Deadpool is perceived as serious, even though we've only seen him literally in figments of Wolverine's imagination. But also he didn't even have a fucking speaking line at all. So, yeah, he's like, if you put all the Deadpool scenes in order, they don't equal 60 seconds. I think...
Honestly, I had forgotten he even showed up in that.
Well, that's because at the time we didn't know who the fuck he was. We just thought he was a random throwaway villain that Wolverine remembers from his past, but no one ever remembers anything else. Because the one episode where he should have shown up, he didn't show up, which is the episode with Silver Fox and Maverick. Domino even showed up. I think she had a speaking line, but Deadpool, no, he's a figment. I think you'll get your wish on some level. I really do, because again, that was never a TV show that knew it was a TV show, and even though in the comics everybody just ignores when Deadpool points out that they're in a comic because no one, quote unquote, believes him except for maybe She-Hulk, because She-Hulk knows she's in a comic. Yeah, you should be lucky with that one. Okay, who else you got?
I'm kind of drawing a blank on others. Yeah, sorry, I can't think of any more at the moment that I'd specifically want to see with the X-Men. Because I thought for a second, maybe Captain America. But then I was like...
They already did that.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Well.
Like I said, I know it's been a long time since we've seen this shit. Wolverine had a whole entire flashback. He remembers him. And ironically, they did the exact same thing in X-Men Evolution. Wolverine had a flashback where he remembered Captain America.
Huh. All right. Refresh my memory. What was the third question?
Would you like to see them try to come up with more original stories or try their hand at adapting special events or scenarios from the comic book realm in the animated show?
All right. With regard to that one, there are some that I hope they avoid, like a second plague of coronavirus.
Damn.
How I mentioned earlier that there's some really messed up story with regard to Jean Grey and Scott Summers. One particular one where I think it was some weird multiverse shit, where it was established that so now I might be remembering this wrong, and if anyone else remembers better, please correct me on this, because I don't want to think that this is actually a plot point that exists, but it basically turned into, Scott and Jean's relationship, you're never really going to, work out properly, and it was justifying, Scott cheating on her. Which, no, please don't have that. It's okay if you want to have them have a kid and maybe have, notable difficult times in their relationship as they maybe have to choose between their relationship and, fighting against everyone who wants them dead. But don't bring in that shit. Please, God, don't.
For those who don't know what he means by that, so a very long time ago, I think 99, maybe 2000, Jean Grey had the Phoenix, but instead of becoming psychopathic, destructive killer, turned into Kanye West. Now, for the uninitiated, that essentially means started getting a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger ego, despite people trying to empathize and sympathize with her when she would talk about her struggles with the Phoenix, trying to get her to basically do whatever the fuck the Phoenix wanted to do. The virus taking over the host instead of the host taking over the virus. And she would be a complete and total dick to Scott about it and try to remind him that you are beneath me. Basically, Jean's personality went the exact opposite way. And he got so fed up with it, and he knew he couldn't do shit about it because, hey, your girl got the Phoenix. Ain't shit you can do about it. It's like dating or marrying a hot chick and telling her what to wear. You already fucked up if you even thought about it. You don't have a choice. You just gonna have to put up with it. Period. Right? And fucking, bro, he decides, well, Emma Frost been leering at me, trying to smash me, and Jean has a psychological link that we allowed each other to have to each other's brains. So she literally can, in a sense, feel my presence mentally as a secondary or as an extra sensory perception. He fucks her knowing she gonna find out. And then when she asks, why did you do that? He said something along the lines of, because I knew you would know about it.
Spite.
Yeah, it was basically, I wouldn't call that a revenge fuck. Would you call that a revenge fuck?
No, definitely spite.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I know we gonna break up, but let me dig a knife in first and pour some salt on the wound. And here's the ironic part. At the same time, in the same breath, there was nothing fucking Jean Grey can ironically do about it. If she kills Scott, she's in trouble. Then the entire force of the superhero community can come down on her. I still, to this day, have no idea how Doctor Strange never gets involved in anything involving the Phoenix. That blows my mind to this day. I literally don't even remember seeing him during Avengers vs. X-Men. I don't remember seeing him. And I read the actual book from beginning to end. So, fucking, that's what he's referring to when he says awkward storylines.
Yep.
All right, anything else, bro?
Uh, I I'm unfortunately mostly familiar with the kind of bad storylines, at least to immediate recollection, because you typically remember the
Yeah,
really awful stuff before you remember the really
yeah.
good
That's
stuff.
how I describe Game of Thrones. Everyone I talk about it talks like Game of Thrones was the worst show ever. I'm like, your real problem is just the last like 3 or 4 episodes, right? And really the last two, because when they had that giant fight at Winterfell, everyone thought it was the shit, but people got mad that Arya is the one who ended the fight. I'm like, that's splitting hairs. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, but I don't remember much of the particularly notable stuff from the comics, other than the bad ones. So I can't think of much else, at least in terms of what I would want them to have, rather than wanting them not to have. Ugh.
So you drawing a blank?
Yeah, kind of drawing a blank on that one. Sorry.
No, it's fine. All right. Well, let me give you the surprise question because surprise. Um, if they make a game out of this series, what would you want it to be? Beat 'em up, RPG, what?
They could do like a sort of combination thing, like a beat 'em up, but you get to as you're going through, make some customization to the characters as you go along.
Was that all you were gonna say?
Uh, I mean, if they made a video game of it, yeah, that's what I want. Is a primarily beat 'em up, but with customizable characters.
Don't get me wrong. The thought is intoxicating, very intoxicating. Now, if you'll excuse me, I know it's my turn, but I'm going to pause this recording and mute my mic because I really have to go to the bathroom. Okay, now I'm addicted to the idea of that kind of beat 'em up. In fact, I hate to say it, but at one point, I was considering trying to get someone to mod Streets of Rage 4 to have X-Men in it, right? And what they would do is fucking, even if they didn't have original movesets, I would get X-Men that could match up with the character on some level. That's how deep I thought about it. And that was what, 2018 Streets of Rage 4 came out?
I think so, yeah.
No, we was in lockdown, so I think it was maybe 2019.
It might have actually been the year of 2020.
Yeah, because I know lockdown was a thing when it came out. Anyways, all right, so I guess it's my turn. So, I mean, outside of the pregnancy thing, I think one of the things that I gleamed is that Morph is actually going to be a consistent member of the team. Because man, was that shit annoying. Bro. Oh my god. What was it? First season, first episode. Oh no, Morph's dead. Well, we have no idea why this dude is even fucking important. They find Morph. Hey guys, I'm just not in the right headspace to be an X-Men. Oh no, people know I was an X-Men, so they're going and trying to brainwash me to fuck up you guys. Hey guys, I appreciate the save, and I know I should stay with you because I'm going to be hunted. Even though I can fucking change my form, I got an idea. I'm still not going to really be a fucking member. Bro, it was fucking annoying. I think he even turned into Deadpool for 3 seconds once. It legit got on my fucking nerves. I'm like, Morph, why is it that you are not staying? All the other ones I get. Iceman did not want to be an X-Men. And I understand it. Canonically speaking, he had been an X-Men practically half his life because he's been in Xavier's Institute on and off since he was like 15, right? So I get that. But here's Morph. Hey guys, I just had to leave after you all thought I was dead or that I got killed. I can't really tell you or explain why I need to keep leaving this fucking group, but I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm not in the right headspace. Yes, I'm paraphrasing, but that's what the fuck happened. Now, don't get me wrong. I know the target demographic for this is anywhere between the age of 1 and like 12. But even back then, I knew that was shitty writing.
Yep.
I am like 5, 6, and I knew, wait a minute, that's not how you tell a story. Do you know how bad you have to fuck up for a 6-year-old to know, wow, this is shitty story writing? Really think about that. Really think about that. So, fucking, yeah. So I end up, you know, I know it sounds like it shouldn't, but morph. Also, I would like to see those villains that, you know, are a mix of a villain for a primary hero, but they also annoy other people. Take Kingpin, for example. Man, Kingpin is on so many people's shit list. He's on both Spider-Man shit list. He's on fucking Daredevil shit list. We all know he's on the Punisher shit list. I know I'm forgetting somebody too. That's the sad part. Maybe technically he's on Iron Man shit list, but that's more of a recent development situation in the comics. So I can't say for sure. But yeah, shit list all around. Anyways, I want to see that. Oh, and I want to see some characters who are just, they have their own teams and association. Like, I know they seem like assholes at the time, but when, what was it? X Sanction? I think that was the group name. The one that Scott Summers' brother Havoc is in. Oh no, spoilers for something that's been known for 30 years. That group, I can't remember that group's name. I know it's not X-Force. So maybe, I think it was Extinction or Execution. I want them to show up again. But it's because they're going after someone who annoys the fuck out of everybody. And they may have, you know, gray area alignment. Or they all get swept up in some insanely ridiculous adventure that has to do with the group or organization or teammates that they normally don't fuck with. Like, what if something's breaking a dimension and Doctor Strange needs help? So the X-Men have to team up with Extinction or Execution. Or my personal favorite one, and I know it's a long shot. I want Black Cat. May have a little bit more leeway with her because she's not Spider-Man. I want Black Cat to try to steal something from the X-Men, right? And she tries to sweet talk Gambit. But, you know, you ain't gonna sweet talk a sweet talker, right?
Yup.
So
that and I think
just the dialogue
Rogue
between
might
those two.
Have something to
yeah,
say.
exactly. Like, you mad, but he can't do nothing with you. Unlike in the comic book, cartoon Gambit cannot be intimate with someone who wants to be intimate with him, and that person is Rogue. And that was actually something that happened in the comics too. How do you love someone you can't touch without dying? So fucking, I want to see that because that has buddy cop hijinks written all over it. Imagine her in the X mansion trying to find something and she fucks around and ends up in a danger room. But it turns out she was trying to steal like a processor or something, some key piece of equipment from the danger room. And she accidentally accelerates the timeline for when Danger Room becomes a character in the X-Men universe. You gotta remember, they don't have to go in the same order that the comics did.
They could easily change things up a bit, yeah.
Yeah. And just like that, boom, we got a new character. Because Danger Room, as weird as it sounds, their holographic training facility is also a character. So that's how I view that one. I know it sounds like a reach on some level. Felicia or Black Cat might be non-existent, not even a thought in Marvel's eye. But Doctor Strange, especially since he's been going through some interdimensional travel, could definitely be a possibility. I don't even know when the next Doctor Strange movie's coming out, but I'm gonna be the first in line for that shit.
Yeah.
So,
looks like it's going to be good stuff. And from what I
basically
remember,
everything after Thor 4 has been pretty decent. This the only people who think that it's not are people who just don't even know how the shit works or paid hate farmers. Because, like, I know we talked about it briefly because we could have been there all millennium. I actually did go through people's complaints about She-Hulk. A lot of them weren't actually smart or sounded like they came from someone who watched the show. And then the ones that were genuinely dumb, they weren't dumb because you can't phrase your ideas. They were dumb because they were comparing She-Hulk to shows that it was not and never pretended to be. People were getting mad She-Hulk didn't look and play and feel and think exactly like Daredevil. Why the fuck would it? She-Hulk knows she's not a real character or person and she's in a comic book. How do you adapt that on TV? Make the character know that she's on TV. Like, her job was to defend serious and comical characters or situations. But people are mad that she didn't go save some world threat or get on a volcano. And I'm sitting up here talking to these people like, yo, that's how her character always been. She was Deadpool before Deadpool and less violent. So, fucking, I just thought to myself, point blank, you know what? Let me have my fun and enjoy this shit. Because if I try to convince or remind people you don't know how this character works every time somebody says something stupid, I'd probably die from stress. So I left it alone at some level. And I just accepted that there are people who are going to hate She-Hulk because they decided She-Hulk as a concept was a terrible show. Based on how they feel, not the actual character and how faithful it was to the source material.
So, complaining about things they didn't want.
Yeah. You complain about something you didn't even want in the first place. At least when I complain about Thor 4, my argument is valid. This is not a Thor movie.
Saw it.
This is a Taika. Yeah, this is not a Thor movie. This is what happens when Taika Waititi, or by extension, any director gets too much control and power on the final version edit of a movie. This is essentially the Zack Snyder shit with X-Men all over again. He did what the fuck he wanted, did not respect the characters, especially the ones that weren't Caucasian. But we'd be here all day on that one. I just like how they all die to their own abilities. Like that makes any sense. Anyways, yeah. So that's it. Oh, and a complete out of blue pick, just because it might be possible. Capcom crossovers, because really stop and think about it. The X-Men that we saw in the Marvel vs. Capcom games, and the X-Men vs. Street Fighter, all that shit. That's the ones from the fucking cartoon. Yes, they're similar to their comic book counterparts, but by the time that show got to its third or fourth season, they didn't look like that really anymore because they were in the age of apocalypse, right? Which was basically a dystopian future scenario, and they were there for years. So honestly, I feel like that's entirely possible. Will it be all the Capcom characters? Nah, maybe 2 or 3. But I'm okay with any, especially if it's Chun-Li.
Dem thighs.
I mean, I wasn't gonna say that.
You were thinking it though.
You know, have Black Widow go up against Killer Bee, aka Cammy, when she was under Bison's control. There's ways to do the shit, and that's a good fight if you stop and think about it. But
true.
Yeah. So fucking moving on to the part 2. What was the second question? It was, okay, we did the crossovers. Oh, adaptations. So when it comes to adapting old stories from the comic or new stories from the comic versus original, man, just go from the comic. I'm gonna tell you why, because these characters are old. Marvel is an almost 100-year-old company, if not already 100 years old. Do you really, honestly want to sit up here and try to scratch your head as a writer and come up with something that hasn't been seen? Or do you want to try and adapt what you can based on the characters you have available and which ones you could incorporate and debut? I know what I want. I'd rather have you take a good story and make it comparable, or take a good story and make it great if you can get a 1-to-1 of almost the entire cast. Legitimately. Now, that brings us into the final question of games. Look, we already know there's going to be an X-Men game in like 2030 at this point. We already know the Wolverine game is in its test build phase, much like my game is going to be, or currently is, I should say. And I don't want to have to wait that fucking long. Can I just get an RPG, an action RPG? Maybe have 4 or 5 characters playable. I get 2 later on in the story. Then have a DLC where there's 2 more playable characters. And then re-release it in a bundle. Yes, I'm basically saying Final Fantasy shit. Final Fantasy 7 shit. Do that shit again. I don't care if it plays like the first Final Fantasy 7, or if I don't care if it plays like the new Final Fantasy 7. Rebirth. Please, just give me something that's going to take longer than 10 hours. Because I'm going to blow your mind right now. When it comes to this video game space, not mobile shit, not gotcha gambling, money game, child predatory addiction bullshit. Really stop and think about it. Really stop. Literally almost every single X-Men game, video game, is completable in under 10 hours. You know why? Because we haven't really had a legitimate X-Men game in almost 20 fucking years. Look up when X-Men Legends 2 came out. A part of me wants to know, is that considered the best X-Men game? Or is it just considered the best X-Men game because that's the last one we fucking got? The only thing that came out after that was X-Men Destiny, which technically got court ordered to be destroyed. And it'll never be ported because the idiots who made it tried to sue the people who made the engine. And they really let them have it. Yeah, that shit was dumb. So unless you get an emulator, that's the most recent X-Men game. And that came out in what, 2009? Listen, it's not hard. These characters are loved. They can generate money without being attached to a gambling game. Okay? We got enough people who can get crossover licenses to where we don't have to worry about people accidentally making a game at the same time as somebody else. Okay? Let them be available for more of the market. Please. Please. I don't feel like I'm asking for much. I don't. But with that being said, we're going to bring this, new show talk to a close. I pretty much never say this, but I like having X-Men conversations. Let us know in the comments what things you want to see happen in the new X-Men show. And what X-Men game types would you make? Bro, and you can quote me on this. Listen, I don't know what's going to happen with me in my game design career. I know I'm technically independent. But let me tell you something. If I can't get a hold of no X-Men, if I can't get a hold of no Marvel properties, characters are going to start appearing in games I work on that have similarities that are legally distinct. I say just let me try. I don't need a big budget. You ain't got to give me like 30, 50, 100 million. Give me 2. Or if it's a really small game, give me 400,000. And me and Stefano's gonna make some magic happen. But yeah, I appreciate you coming through, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
All right, so the deal with the X-Men 97 is I don't really have a deal with it because I didn't watch the original series, since this is basically supposed to be some kind of reboot of sorts. That wasn't what I was into when I was a young child, and also it seems like based on the 97 part means that this probably came out before I was even born, because that's just how things go, I suppose. That said, I'm very interested to see everything that they end up doing with this series, mostly because I feel like this might be actually a good way to get people who have never really been too into the X-Men IP, or people who have never just dabbled in it per se. I think this might be a great new-aged way to kind of get them into it from the start, especially because I feel like a lot of people tend to have a lot of very controversial opinions to say about the live-action movies that they've made and how a lot of them aren't very good. And so hopefully if this adaptation is done correctly, then they can actually make something that they can make a product that is not nearly as intimidating for people who have never been invested in the X-Men IP to actually partake in. And I'm excited to see how that actually goes. I also just, near the end, when it's just like, to me, my X-Men, and then they all just fucking show up, I'm like, wow, look at that. It's been a minute since I've seen like a whole, everybody come together sorts of team ordeal thing, and this is something I've been missing in my life, and this really will hopefully fill that spot. It's a really weird spot that I have, and I don't know why I have it, but it's just a thing that I've been missing, and I'm hoping that they can, whatever the context behind that specific thing is, I'm hoping they do it right. Although I guess everyone is hoping that they do everything on this correctly, because they've got some very big shoes to fill, if you know what I mean. There was also a thing, when I watched this video a couple of times, and then I went into the comments and somebody quoted something that was actually listed from the Daily Bugle paper that would have been flying through, and it was asking if Spider-Man is a mutant. And if that means that they somehow managed to get like an animated Spider-Man into that, then I'm all on board, because that is what I fucking nerd out about. And to see those two things come together, I think would be pretty appealing to me. If they don't do that, that's whatever. Maybe I'm looking too deep into it. Maybe that's just them poking fun at the fact that that's been like an age-old debate that people have been having for a long time concerning mutants and Spider-Man specifically. So I'm very excited to see what they do with that, if they do anything, or if they're just here to keep us on our toes. With all that said, though, I do also have to come into question what exactly was the kind of precipice behind them deciding that they wanted to make an animated series after all this time. I know that they've done like Marvel What If Season 2, which is an animated thing, and they have done a couple of other things. I'm just wondering why this is the way that they decided they wanted to reboot the X-Men. I suppose it's probably because it's easier. And also I'm realizing I'm saying reboot, and that sounds kind of silly, because it's not like this is supposed to take over the main stage of the live-action films. I'm just wondering where this came from their direction, or like from the director's standpoint, like where did this come from? What was their plan? Why did they decide that this is the way that they wanted to do it? Have they been listening to people? Have a lot of people been talking about X-Men, and they were like, all right, we got to bring this back. Who really knows? And then even though I don't know shit about story, I do have to wonder where the timeline, it's like, Charles Xavier's like dead, presumably, and then the X-Men is kind of like, I don't know, it doesn't have like a full-on professor of sorts for a little while. It's just kind of them and their self-discipline working together as a team, and then suddenly Magneto has taken over everything that Xavier once owned and everything he's created. It's a little bit bizarre. I don't think I quite get it, but that's also just because I'm clearly missing a lot of context behind this, and so, especially given the fact that this is spliced in after the fact, I'm sure that there's probably something that somebody explained prior, and it's going to make me look a little bit silly and dumb, and that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Thank you. Also, I'm assuming they're doing a sports episode, because near the end, it's like most people are in sports gear, and Wolverine doesn't have a shirt on. So that sounds fun. I think the last thing that I have is it seems kind of... I know mutants, it seems like in their series, have always been kind of a thing that the public has always been a little bit iffy about. Somehow when you call them mutants, it like separates them and differentiates them from superheroes, but to see that it really seems to be like a thing directly in the forefront, with the crowd being very upset about mutants as an existence, or as a thing, is very interesting to see. And I don't know where the cadence would have changed, or if this is another one of those situations that I'm just missing context because I've never really been into the X-Men, but I'm at least trying to stretch my brain here a little bit and give this the benefit of the doubt, because it looks interesting. There's just clearly bits and pieces that I'm missing, and I'm okay with that. Anyway, I think that's everything I have from the home studio here, so back to you.